That many? Look at you, Rand said, surprised that out of every 5 Aes Sedai, merely 4 can be trusted to fight the shadow if they're with you while it attacks. I doubt you'd have reacted like that just a month ago. Nynaeve quieted at that, no doubt reflecting her recent changes in attitude towards Aes Sedai. Still, that is incredibly dangerous. Yet you seem to consider the Aes Sedai to be allies. Potential allies, Rand corrected. I know the Amelin seat is trustworthy, and I know several other influential ones who are. And, as I believe I've shared before, there is someone who has a mostly complete list of all Black Sisters. We'll start getting rid of them, hopefully tomorrow. While they were chatting, Moraine had woken up, and Lan had immediately provided her with something to eat. Mat and Perrin joined Rand and Nynaeve, and conversation drifted to lighter topics. About an hour later, everyone was ready for the next step, although that included slightly more waiting for most of them. Moraine, shall we collect my sword? She raised an eyebrow. You do have a way of putting things, do you not? I'll take that as a yes. Quick reminder for everyone. I'll go ahead with Moiraine and speak to the Tyran nobility, and then I'll fetch all of you after that, so that you can sleep in the stone tonight. He seized Saidin, again reveling in the fact that he could do so without restraint, and wove a gateway directly to the heart of the stone. He stepped through, Moraine right behind him, and together they stood in front of Callandor. Strange, Moraine said. I can see weaves that ward off the sword, but there are gaps in them. That's where Saidin has been woven instead, Rand said. I see the other parts, although of course I cannot see the Cedar. If you put your hand on it, you'll find you cannot go beyond the ward's boundary even where you cannot see any weaves. Moraine did so, first, from Rand's perspective, placing her hand on a gap and then moving towards Saidin. Then, Rand stepped forward and reached through the weave to claim the sword. That is not a sword. The weave fell apart as soon as Rand's hand closed around the hilt. Is it made of glass? Moraine asked, curious. Or crystal? It seems fragile, chuckled. I can assure you that it is not. In fact, I once parted balefire with it, although that is something I prefer to not have to repeat. I am not sure how that even worked out, so what is it then? A sangria for Saidin, Rand answered. One of the strongest ever made, although not quite on the level of the Shoidan Kal. However, it cannot be used safely, not by itself. Unless the wielder is in a circle with 2 women can forcibly draw the wielder into a circle. And then they have control of the weaves, and he wouldn't even be able to leave the circle until they released him. Exactly, Rand said. Which is why, most of the time, I will only be using it to display my status as the Dragon Reborn. Although when I do need to use it, I will likely ask you to link with me. But let's go meet the High Lords. I'll let you take the lead, Moraine said. Rand wove a mirror of mists, not to change his appearance, but to show richer clothes than what he was actually wearing. He would be able to have clothes befitting his position made for him soon, but he hadn't had the opportunity before. Did you know that? The first time around, you ordered rich clothes for me and then burned my old ones, thus forcing me to wear them, Rand said with a chuckle. I was rather annoyed at that back then. That seems like an extreme measure, Moraine noted. You knew I was the Dragon Reborn, Rand said, but I was refusing to admit it, even to myself. It was part of your attempts to prepare me for the position, despite my reluctance is probably an understatement, to accept it. By dressing me like a lord, you made people treat me like a lord, which forced to learn to behave like one. It didn't take long for them to come across a High Lord who stopped dead in his tracks at the sight of a tall, red-haired stranger, even if he was wearing rich clothes. Who are you? The man demanded, putting his hand on the pommel of the sword he was wearing at his side. Rand put Callandor in front of him, the tip resting on the floor of the corridor. I am sure you know, High Lord Tolian. The plain-faced man stared at the sword like it was a snake. That's impossible. I fear I must disappoint you in that regard. Perhaps I could speak to you and the rest of the council, or at least those that are here in the stone, High Lord Torean. I don't, he stammered, but Rand cut him off. If you or your peers decide to greet me with violence, I will be forced to return the favor, Rand said. I am sure you know enough about me to understand how bad of an idea that would be. But rest assured, I will not attack anyone who does not attack me first, even if they are with someone who does attack me. A pair of guards had turned the corner, but at a gesture from Torean, they remained at a short distance. I will do that, Torian said. Who is with you? You may call me Lord Dragon, Rand said. With me is Moraine Damodre, an Aes Sedai and my advisor. I expect you all to show her the same courtesy you would to me. Torean called the guards to him and relayed what Rand had said, including that he would not attack without being attacked. Make sure to get that message, start to finish, across to every High Lord and Lady, he instructed. We will meet the Lord Dragon in the council room. When the guards left, recruited to messengers, he turned back to Rand, but before he'd figured out how to ask his question, Rand spoke. I know the way. Torian nodded, somewhat hurriedly leading the way there. He had no need to be anywhere else, after all. Lord Dragon, he said, after spending a minute deliberating whether or not the question was going to get him killed, assuming Rand was reading his body language right. If I may ask, what is your actual name? I am Rand al'Thor, Rand said, and know that I will not act against you because you display curiosity, although I do expect respect, both for myself and for others. But we will speak about that in more length in a moment. They arrived at and entered the council room together. Well, Rand entered first, then Moraine, and then Torean. Only one other High Lord was already present, although Rand was certain the others would join them soon. Good afternoon, High Lord Aracombe. Welcome, Lord Dragon, the man responded, sounding slightly strained. He gave Moraine a dirty look, but didn't otherwise comment on her presence or status. As the High Lords and Ladies present filed in, Rand made sure to greet each of them by their name, visibly surprising most of them. He was glad to see Darlin Cisnera was here too. Darlin had initially led a rebellion against Rand, but eventually he had been swayed to Rand's side and had proven a capable steward and later even king of Tyr. He had left the stone in the immediate aftermath of Rand taking it last time. This time, he'd likely been too overwhelmed to decide to make a break for it, which gave Rand an opportunity to seek to secure his loyalty immediately. High Lords and Ladies, Rand said when he was informed they were complete. Thank you for your quick response after I called you here. My name is Rand al'Thor, and I am the Dragon Reborn. He put a hand on the pommel of Calendor, which was lying on the table he was standing behind. With me is Moiraine Damodred, Aes Sedai of the Blue Ajar. First of all, I wish to make clear that I intend to work together with you, not against you. Not against you. And why should we work together with you in the first place? Wiramon Sanyago challenged. The grey-haired, balding High Lord, oddly reminiscent of a strutting rooster, had little sense that Rand could remember. However, he did have power, which meant he had to be worked with. Although Rand certainly did not intend to give him the same influence as last time around, the man had never used it well. Rand was severely tempted to threaten him, and all other High Lords that had their doubts, into submission, but fear made for poor underlings. Because as far as tens of thousands of people out there are concerned, including thousands in Tyr itself, I am the rightful ruler of this land, simply because I hold Calendor. I am sure you understand that there are benefits to working with me. That got several of them to perk up. Corruption and nepotism were as popular as cheating on wives and beating up commoners among Tyren nobility. Not that Rand intended to indulge in that, but there were also benefits that didn't require a faulty moral compass, even if they weren't the ones the High Lords were likely to be thinking of. But that is going to require a concession from us, Darlin said. It will, Rand agreed bluntly. I do not intend to personally take care of Tyr's day-to-day affairs, at least not where it can be avoided. This is in part because it is likely that I will obtain power elsewhere as well. However, there are certain Tyren laws that I find objectionable. Now, the lords were looking worried, such as Torian tried. The law that forbids channeling will go, Rand said, leaving no room for debate, as will any other laws that discriminate against channelers, male or female. We mustn't allow male channelers. Hi, Lady Anayela exclaimed, presumably forgetting for a moment who Rand was. Those of you with eyes and ears among the Aes Sedai, or other contacts with them that you would refuse to admit to in any circumstance, may be aware that extremely strong channeling was felt in Western Andor 4 days ago, strong enough to be notable from hundreds or even thousands of leagues away. On that day, the taint was removed from Sedene. The male half of the One Power is again safe to use. We are on the brink of a new age, lords and ladies. The world will change tremendously in the coming years. You will have to adapt, for if you do not, you will be left behind. The last sentences Rand spoke were almost drowned out by the protests from the nobles present. He let them shout and complain for a while, then wove air and caused a thunderclap, although quieted to not leave their ears ringing. I do not intend to simply lay down a number of laws today without dialogue, he said. He had done that last time around, and while it had gotten some effects, it had also caused significant animosity. The purpose of this meeting is to announce my presence here in the stone to all of you, and to make you aware of what I intend to do. You will all have time to consider any legal changes I propose, and discuss them with me, although I must stress that your disagreement is not itself going to be a reason for me to not enact it. However, if you provide argumentation behind your disagreement, I will consider it first. I am but one man, after all, and I can, and will, make mistakes. Rand made brief eye contact with each of the High Lords and Ladies in turn, ensuring that they had received the message. Lord Dragon, Darlin said, what is your intention for the future of Tyr? I intend for Tyr to be my primary seat of power, Rand said. I also wish to bring it wealth, prosperity, and safety for all, commoner and noble. As I already said, I wish to pursue this goal with your aid, where possible. And if it is not, Darlin asked, then I will seek to resolve the conflict in the most peaceful manner as possible. Tarmon Gaidon is fast approaching, and we will need to stand unified if we are to beat back the shadow. Someone scoffed at that, and Rand shot them a sharp look. Is my very presence not a sign that the last battle is near? He challenged. It remained silent, so he turned back to Darlin. Does that answer your question, High Lord? To a degree, Darlin conceded. I do wish to speak to you more, Lord Dragon. You will have the opportunity soon, Rand said. These coming few days, I will still be busy with some pressing business. After that, I will have more time, including time to speak to all of you in personal meetings, if you so desire. I will make use of that as soon as I can, Lord Dragon, Darlin noted. Then, as far as I am concerned, today's meeting is concluded, Rand said. I will speak to the serving staff about my quarters and those of my friends, who I will bring in shortly. As with Moraine, I expect that you do not bother them unnecessarily. And if you have a problem with one of the youths, you will bring it up with me, not with them. He again made eye contact with all the nobles, then nodded. Be on your way. The next morning, Rand met up with Moiraine and Lan after breakfast. I wonder what your friend will think, Rand said with a smirk. Moiraine couldn't hold back a small laugh. Xuan must be going crazy by now. Let's not keep her waiting then, Rand said. I'll let you do the honors for the gateway. I'm not familiar with the White Tower's layout. Straight to the Amerlin's quarters, right? Unless you want to give the Black Ajar time to react to the presence of the Dragon Reborn, yes. I have heard it said that referring to yourself in third person is a sign of madness, Moraine joked. Rand laughed. But if that is the only madness the Dragon Reborn has to deal with, he will gladly accept it. Moraine wove the gateway, straight into the Amerlin seat's office, and stepped through, Lan behind her and Rand, who dropped his mirror of mists, the Amerlin seat wouldn't mind, followed last. Xuan had been sitting behind her desk, but when Rand got to look around the room, Moiraine, she exclaimed when she saw who had stepped through. That's traveling! It is, Moraine said. Rand suspected she was heavily relying on her training to hide emotions right now. An opportunity to put Siwan on the wrong foot as many times as today wasn't likely to come to pass again anytime soon. Perhaps not ever. And he is the one you found, Xuan said, glancing at Rand, her talent to see Tavaren confirming it already. Rand drew Calendor from the scabbard on his back and placed it in front of him, like he had done the previous day when meeting Toraen. I am indeed the Dragon Reborn. Xuan fell silent when she saw the blade. Then she looked back at Moraine. I would have liked a more timely update on what you have been doing, daughter. Moraine allowed a small smirk. Feel free to cuss at me, Xuan. At that, Xuan's Aes Sedai mask relaxed and showed some of the stress she'd been hiding. In that case, perhaps you can tell me what in the bloody light is going on, you blasted madwoman. It is, as I said, Moraine responded, still completely calm. I found the Dragon Reborn. Then I came here at the first opportunity to speak to you. First opportunity, Xuan said skeptically. I am sure all those earlier occasions where you could apparently bloody travel do not count, including the one where you send an entire delegation, complete with false dragon ahead of you. We were on a schedule, Moraine said primly. Perhaps we should take a seat. Fine. Take a bloody seat, Xuan exclaimed, leading them to a sitting room that probably didn't see all that much use, considering the small number of people she could even remotely treat as equals. Rand shared an amused look with Lan as they sat down, before focusing his attention back on the two women again. And burn me, what did you do with Sai? The entire tower has been like a disturbed anthill for 4 days now. So you did the experiment, Moraine noted. Good. Explain, Xuan growled. We used an elaborate weave of Sadar to strip the taint of Sedin and let Shadar Logoth trap it until the two annihilated each other. Speaking of which, I should report that Shadar Logoth no longer exists. Moiraine Damodre, I swear by the light, if you do not start speaking sense very quickly, I will keelhaul you. On what boat? Rand asked amusedly. Siwan rounded on him. You? She paused, then took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Rand guessed she was doing meditative exercises like were taught to novices and accepted. After what had to be at least 25 heartbeats, she opened her eyes again. Moraine Sedai, perhaps you could give a brief overview of recent events while traveling with this man who is the dragon. Reborn. Moraine nodded, appearing completely serious. Let's see. I found Rand in Two Rivers, where it became clear to me very quickly that he was the Dragon Reborn. The shadow was right behind me, but his surprising swordsmanship skills helped fend off their forces. We then started traveling in this direction, eventually managing to shake off most of the shadow's forces in the area. In Caemlyn, after our unexpected meeting with Elida, we had concluded that we needed to travel elsewhere and could not immediately come to Tar Valon. Thus, we first traveled to Fal Dara, and from there to the Eye of the World. There, we killed Aginor, Balthamel, and Ishamael, and broke the Shadow's army that sought to overrun Shi'anar. Then, we traveled to Shadar Logoth to cleanse Sedin, and then we traveled to Tyr so Rand could claim Calendor. Immediately after that, we came here. I am incredibly bloody tempted to drag you down to the harbor, commandeer a ship, and carry out my threat, Xuan said, calmly. Closely. Rand briefly glanced at Moiraine. I'd say there aren't any inaccuracies in there. In fact, your first oath wouldn't allow that anyway. She set you up for this, didn't she? Xuan said. She did not need to. The Forsaken Xuan demanded. 3 of them. I don't think they were expecting me to open with balefire, Rand said casually. Or for Moiraine to do so as well. You know what? Blast it, Xuan said. I don't know. She threw her hands up. Give me the whole story, start to finish. I don't care anymore. I'll decide what to think after. I suppose it starts with me doing something incredibly irresponsible and undoing 2 years of the pattern, effectively sending me back in time with my memories and those of Luz. Telemon, Rand said. Xuan stared at him, blinked, considered her avenues to reply. All right, fine. Just continue, please. Everything we've done since was based on the knowledge I brought with me, Rand continued. As a side note, whatever happened clearly negated the taint on my mind. Before I went back, I did not have nearly the mental clarity I've enjoyed over the past month. That's not ominous at all, Xuan noted. I fear it's the best I can provide. Together with cleansing Sedin, of course. Xuan didn't visibly react to that. Together with Moiraine, I quickly determined what our priority should be. At the top of the list was cleansing Sedin, something I had not managed until much later the previous time around. However, as you are well aware, doing so would provide a beacon for every channeler alive, including the Forsaken. Ishamael in particular was never quite properly sealed away and could periodically affect the world. Please tell me that's not true. He is the one behind the name Baalzamon, although he did seem to believe himself to be the Dark One. The Trolloc Wars were his doing, and I suspect he may have had a hand in various aspects of Artur Hawkwing's empire and reign as well. So we could not simply attempt to cleanse Sedin immediately, and instead had to keep my knowledge and experience secret until such time when we could strike at the freed Forsaken at once, taking them by surprise. The only location we knew for this was the Eye of the World, which conveniently provided a source of purified Sedin that let me fight the battle without having to expose myself to the taint. So we traveled the old-fashioned method, which also provided my friends Egwene and Nynaeve some time to get acquainted with the One Power. They are channelers, Xuan asked. Quite strong ones, Rand said. Both are stronger than any current Aes Sedai. Egwene is on Elaine's level, I assume you have met her, and Nynaeve is a little stronger yet. You have met the daughter heir in Caemlyn, Siwan asked. Quite a bit more than that in the previous timeline, but that's something to discuss later if it's relevant in the first place. After Caemlyn, we traveled to Shi'enar, and from there to the Eye, where, as Moiraine already mentioned, we managed to surprise both Agenor and Balthamel. I then fought Ishamael away from the others, and managed to kill him too. After that, we traveled immediately to Shadar Logoth and began to cleanse Sedin, which you are of course already aware of. And what did you do in the days since sleep, mostly? Rand said. The effort of channeling as much of the One Power as Moiraine and I did left us both unconscious for several days. We awoke yesterday, traveled to Ter to obtain Kalandor and get myself established, and now we're here for the last of the essential tasks we set. To announce yourself to the world? Xuan asked. Or to the White Tower specifically? That is part of it, Rand said. The main goal is to rout the Black Ajah before they have time to respond. Siwan's disposition changed slightly when that word was spoken, but she was clearly well aware of their existence. Moiraine had encountered them almost 20 years ago already, and several times since. And how would you want to go about that? A stage magician cannot reveal all his tricks, Rand said cheekily. Let's get your Keeper of the Chronicles in here first and bring her up to speed. Siwan looked to Moiraine. Moiraine, if you could. Despite not showing any emotion, Moiraine managed to convey the equivalent of a dirty look to an astute observer like Rand or Siwan. Payback for what she'd made Siwan go through earlier, probably. Moiraine stood and made her way to Liane Sharif's office, returning with the rather surprised Domani woman a minute later. In the meanwhile, Rand wove his mirror of mists again, showing a style of dress much like he had been used to in the old timeline. Where do Moiraine Sedai and your other visitor come from? Mother Lean queried. Moiraine Sedai has rediscovered the weave of traveling, Xuan said. Liane's eyes widened in amazement. Oh. She was tall, with coppery skin, and beautiful in the way most Domani were, despite putting little effort into her appearance. From what Rand remembered, she had embraced her Domani nature more after her stilling, and in fact, she had joined the Green Ajah after Nynaeve had healed her. However, all of that was unlikely to come to pass. But that is also a security risk, Lean said, having gotten over her excitement. And do you not mind her sudden and unannounced appearance, Mother Moiraine, had important information that needed to be shared with me as soon as possible, Swan said. Rand wondered if it was a true statement in the most obvious sense after all. Moiraine had arguably dallied a bit with coming here, or in the sense that it was Siuan's opinion. You may have a point regarding security, however. I had not yet considered that. There exist wards that can bar the creation of gateways within them, Rand supplied. Who are you? Lean asked. I am Rand al'Thor, he responded, showing Callandor. Leanie gasped. Is that Callandor? Yes. I am the Dragon Reborn. Lean seemed too shocked to speak, so Rand continued. I am sure every sister in the tower has heard by now that Sedin has been cleansed. Moiraine and I performed this task. As for why I am here, today will be the downfall of the Black Ajah. Lean still needed a few moments to gather her balance, although she masterfully kept it off her face. But she grasped onto the one thing she knew how to respond to. Those are very dangerous words to speak, Lord al'Thor. Then today will be a very difficult day for you, Lean Sedai. Thankfully, we are not merely a step, but a full leap ahead of the shadow. But we must act quickly. When the Black Ajah learns the full extent of my recent actions, they will not underestimate us anymore. Lien turned to Siuan, seeking her direction. We will do as the Dragon Reborn says, daughter, Siuan said. What he and Moiraine Sedai have told and shown me, as well as the conversations I have had with Elaida Sedai, give me full confidence in him. Some surprise actually showed on Lena's face. Elaida Sedai knows you are harboring the Dragon Reborn, and kept that information secret. That was a surprise to Rand too, and Moiraine, although she showed none of it. I have found surprising common ground with Elaida Sedai this past week, Siuan said. We do not like each other, but we both see the value in working together despite that. So, what do you propose, Dragon Reborn? Lean asked, turning back to Rand. She seemed a little doubtful about things, but followed Siuan's orders. First, I want you to collect the oath rod, Rand said. It can be used to unswear and reswear oaths, which will be necessary, as the Black Ajah has removed their oaths and sworn different ones, ensuring loyalty to the Dark One. Then, get someone to send Sheriam Sedai up here. Lean briefly looked to Siuan for confirmation, then left to carry out those two tasks. She, Siuan, and Moiraine most likely assumed Rand just wanted to get Sheriam in on the hunt as well. Rand hadn't shared Sheriam's allegiance to the Black Ajah with them. Sheriam arrived in Swan's quarters shortly after Lean had returned with the oath rod. You sent for me, mother? She asked, before looking around and having her eyes fall on Rand. A man who was not a warder was a rare sight in this part of the White Tower. Rand took the initiative. He did. I am Rand al'Thor. He showed Callandor, the Dragon Reborn. Sheriam's breath hitched for a moment. Today I seek to rid the White Tower of the Black Ajah, he continued. The goosebumps on his skin told him Sheriam embraced the source, but he was ready and slammed down a shield, forcefully cutting her off and causing a rather louder gasp. Rand whipped Callandor up and placed it against Sheriam's throat. Lean Sedai will give you the oath rod and channel into it. You will unswear any oaths you have sworn, and then re-swear the first oath. What? Siuan exclaimed as she caught up with the situation. Sheriam is black. She won't be the only one you believe trustworthy that is black, Rand said, keeping his eyes locked on Sheriam's. The redhead swallowed heavily. Do as he says, Siuan said when Lean hesitated, and she handed the oath rod to Sheriam. So, what do you want me to do? Sheriam drawled. Bah! You've done it before, haven't you? Rand challenged. But... She met his eyes several seconds longer, then came to a decision and steeled herself. I rescind my oaths, rescind my oaths. She was clearly in pain, but didn't show it. Once she'd stopped biting her teeth, she spoke again. I vow that I will speak no word that is not true. Rand pulled Callandor back, and Sheriam placed the oath rod on the ground. Give me a single reason not to execute you immediately, Siuan growled. I feel no loyalty towards the Dark One or the Black Ajah, Sheriam responded, and Rand found himself surprised, as did everyone else in the room, no doubt. But you are a member, Rand said. I am, Sheriam acknowledged. She was pale, even more than usual, but had clearly decided on a course of action and was determined to see it through, knowing that she was currently headed for execution. I sought to get ahead in the tower like everyone else and asked questions where I should not have. We all have to make choices. Is that it? Xuan asked, an undertone of anger and betrayal in her deceptively calm voice. Had I known the Dragon Reborn was about to announce himself, I would never have joined, Sheriam said desperately. I don't want to get caught up in any of that. Rand met Xuan and Moraine's eyes and wove a weave around the three of them and leaned to avoid eavesdropping. She cannot lie right now, he said. She spoke the oath. What's she getting at, though? Xuan said. What she said must be true, but there are the things she didn't say. She clearly doesn't seem to feel any guilt over her decisions, and I'd say she has a rather utilitarian outlook on White Tower politics and life in general. She also no doubt knows execution lies in her future, even if you hadn't mentioned it. I think she's hoping she can switch sides again now that she has been found out. Well, I don't think so, Xuan said. She's completely untrustworthy. She switched sides once. She now wants to do it a second time. Who's going to stop her from doing it a third time? Blast it. I can't believe Sheriam of all people did this. Rand picked up the oath rod and gave it a contemplative look. What if we give her an out, but ensure her loyalty? That is a very dangerous precedent to establish, Moraine said. There is only one way to deal with dark friends, in particular if they are also Aes Sedai, Liane argued. Gregoshan. Every channeler on our side at the last battle is invaluable, Rand said. In particular, those who already have experience. What if we strip her from her position and exile her from the tower, and then allow her to swear loyalty to me? It seems to me that she likes to ingratiate herself with power as much as she seeks it for herself. If I give her a position in my court, enough that she can enjoy some power and prove her dedication to me, I don't think she'll be tempted to betray me. And of course, I will have someone trustworthy keep an eye on her. Mother's milk in a cup, Xuan muttered. I don't want to sentence Sheriam to death. We've been friends since we were accepted. Moraine glanced over at the mistress of novices, who was fearfully watching their conversation. I don't want to either, she said. We've spent years together. Objectively, Lean is right, but now that Rand has offered an alternative, I want to take it. Lean? Xuan asked. What do you say? I don't want to make this decision unless you're willing to concede. Permission to speak freely, Mother? Yes. Burn it, Line. You always have permission to speak freely. That's why I chose you for this position. Xuan said with a measure of frustration. I fear that you are letting your emotions guide your decisions over reason, Lean said. As you said, Mother, she's untrustworthy. And your thoughts on my proposal? Rand asked. She won't be here. In fact, she'll be banished from Tar Valon entirely, and she can help get things running for me in Tyr. The risk would be on me. Ah! What if she undermines your position, Lord Ulthor? There will be plenty of people attempting to undermine my position, Rand said. Most of them won't even be dark friends. I will have to trust the right people, and at least Sheriam would be a known danger. I also don't think she'll want to risk the chaos of undermining me. She's too likely to lose from it, instead of gaining. Lean nodded. I'll concede, Mother. I do not like it, but I understand the reasoning. Xuan nodded her assent in return, and Rand removed the eavesdropping protection. Kyriam, the Amelin seat has decided to be merciful based on your past relationship with her, on one condition. And that is? The woman asked, almost begged. You will be stripped of your position, both as Mistress of Novices and as Aes Sedai, and banished from Tar Valon. You will swear loyalty to me on the oath rod, and support me as I expand my seat of power in Tyr. I accept, she responded immediately. Then the question is, how do we word the oaths? Rand said. And also, does Sheriam keep the first oath? Just an oath of loyalty should be sufficient, right? Moraine said. I want her to swear 3 separate oaths, Rand said. This has to do with how the oath rod works, which is something I intend to discuss with the Amelin seat and the hall at a later date. They debated the issue for a while before pinning down the final oaths. I rescind my oath, Sheriam said, clenching her teeth. Then, repeating Rand's exact wording, which he'd written down, she swore her oaths. I vow that I will loyally serve Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, until his or my death, whichever comes first, or until he releases me from this oath. I vow that I will not use methods that I believe Rand al'Thor would disapprove of to advance my position, in his ranks or any other. I vow that I will fight the shadow to the best of my ability, within the constraints of my other oaths. Rand released his shield around Sheriam, and she gasped. Thank you, my lord, for giving me another chance. You'll have to show me that you deserve it, Rand said sternly. For today, that means assisting us in the removal of the Black Ajar as a whole from the White Tower. I only know a few names, Sheriam said, although I could tell you about the power structure. That won't be needed right now, Rand said. Mother, could you call Verine here first? And, considering your recent interactions with her, perhaps Elida too. I'll leave that to your judgment. She might be reluctant to acknowledge the existence of the Black Ajar, Xuan said, but I do trust her. Lin, could you send for both? Of course, Mother. It only took a few minutes for Elida to arrive. Good morning, Elida, said I, Rand greeted. Master al'Thor, she responded curtly. You are a man full of surprises. I could say the same of you, he replied. Well, you would be a woman full of surprises, of course. Elida glanced at the unanimously blue audience. I would rather not discuss sensitive matters among any more people than strictly necessary. Do not worry, Rand said. After today, the Black Ajar will no longer have a presence in this tower. Elida stilled. Whoa! Those are dangerous words to say, even for a man such as you, Master al'Thor. Rand turned toward Sheriam. Sheriam, do you know how many sisters are members of the Black Ajar? No, she responded, but I would estimate certainly over 100. Elida wasn't the only one who let out a shocked gasp at that comment. And perhaps you could elaborate how you know that. Rand prodded. Until I swore loyalty to the Lord Dragon earlier today, I was a member, Sheriam said. While the identities of other Black Sisters were always kept very secret, dealing with the Black Ajar Supreme Council has allowed me to estimate the number to a degree. Elida, now clearly even more disconcerted, turned to Rand. Why is she still alive? Because her true loyalty is to power, Rand responded, and I hold more of it than the shadow can provide her. Even people that I do not trust can still be useful to me. Also, he tapped the oath rod, we did not take risks. But surely she receives a punishment. She will be stripped of her position, both as mistress of novices and as Aes Sedai, and banned from Tar Valon, Rand said. Verine entered Xuan's office at that moment. You sent for me, Mother? She asked, distractedly looking around the group, although her eyes widened minutely when she saw Rand. Rand, in turn, thrusted the oath rod into her hand and pointed Calendar at her, although not quite as threateningly as he had with Sheriam. Verin Mathwin, rescind your oaths. Now! Verine's eyes did widen in shock, and her absent-minded demeanor vanished. She gave him a calculating look, but this time, when Rand felt the goosebumps of someone embracing Sadar, he did not weave a shield. I rescind my oaths, Verin said, making Rand lower his blade again. You are the Dragon Reborn. I am, Rand said. And today, the Black Ajar falls. Verin's eyes shot to Sheriam for a second. Sheriam has elected to swear herself to me, Rand said. You'll have to explain to us what is going on, Moraine told Rand. I do find myself curious as well, Verin said. I fear your curiosity must remain unsatisfied for now, Verin Sedai, Rand said. Although perhaps you can interrogate me at a later time. As for the curiosity of the others present, you can probably satisfy it better than me. You are aware I have not quite completed my work, Farine asked. It is more important to act now than to allow the Black Ajar to whisper in the wrong ears. Farine nodded. I understand. She turned to the larger group. Several decades ago, my curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself in a situation where I had to choose between swearing loyal to the Black Ajar or death. But Rand trusts you, Moraine observed, unlike Sheriam. He did threaten my life, Verin pointed out, although she seemed slightly smug. Or perhaps that is merely how you interpreted it, Rand said with similar smugness. The oath of loyalty to the Black Ajar demands that we do not betray them until the hour of our death. Verin explained. I chose to interpret that the Dragon Reborn was intending to kill me, and thus deciding to rescind my oath would not constitute a betrayal of that oath, as it was the hour of my death until the Dragon Reborn changed his mind. Clever, Moraine said. All members of the Brown Ajar seek to leave a lasting legacy, Verin continued. For some, it may be to describe the many species of plants, or insects, or mammals that our world harbors, or perhaps the history of a kingdom, all gathered into one place. For me, I have sought to compile a complete overview of the Black Ajar, its inner workings, its methodology, and its members, all to be revealed at the perfect time, such as after the Dragon Reborn announces himself, but before the news of this announcement has even made its way out of Tyr. Rand smirked. Indeed, Verin agreed. You are correct that this is a wonderful time, although I still find myself mystified how you knew what I know. I have quite a bit of knowledge one might not expect me to have, he said. How to cleanse Sedin, for example. So that was you, Verin murmured. I did wonder whether it might be a sign that Tarmangaidon was near. I imagine even my birth would already be such a sign, Rand commented. But perhaps we should gather your notes so that we may outline a plan. How do you intend to move through the tower to my personal quarters without notice? Farine asked. By traveling, Rand replied. Moiraine, do you know the location of Verin's rooms? In response, Moraine wove a gateway, Verin gasped. How did you discover that? I taught her, Rand said. We linked up. Moraine handed control of the circle to me, and I performed the Sedar weave for her until she could reproduce it by herself. You know how to weave Sedar? Farine asked. In the Age of Legends, it was common for men and women to work together when using the One Power, Rand said. All prominent channelers of the age were proficient with both Sedin and Sedar. Everyone who wasn't aware of Rand's memories gave him a flabbergasted look. I am the Dragon Reborn, Rand said. And you have his knowledge, Farine asked. I do. But let's not delay. The more time the Black Ajar has to react, the more of them will escape. They walked through the gateway, finding Verin's warder Thomas waiting on the other side, clearly surprised at what was going on. Verin, he asked. Our plans just changed, she said. This is... She turned to Rand. What is your name? Randall Thor, he said. And he is the Dragon Reborn, Verin said. He is being somewhat cryptic, but he clearly knew what we've been up to and wants to act immediately. Thomas took the shock surprisingly well. He studied Rand for several seconds, then turned to Verin. What about your oaths? I rescinded them at sword point. Thomas gave Rand a severe look. She was free to interpret it however she wished, Rand pointed out. Indeed I was. Verin mumbled as she removed her various protections, both physical and of the One Power, from a cabinet and liberated her notebooks. This contains everything. They made their way back to the gateway, Thomas following them. Verin briefly explained what the portal was, leaving him as awed as any Aes Sedai who had learned of them. I have all information here, Verin explained, placing her notebooks on Siwan's desk. This one contains the structure of the Black Ajar. Every sister is part of a heart, which consists of 3 sisters. Each knows the identity of both other sisters in their heart. In addition, every sister also knows the identity of one person outside their heart. Because of this, it is difficult for any one sister to expose the Black Aja. But you know more names, don't you? Moraine said. Were you? There's no way you were the head of the council, Sheriam said. That would have made things significantly easier, Verin noted. No. I had to work with some compulsion weaves and memory-altering weaves I'd cobbled together. Not great, but they did the job. I interrogated every sister I could get alone, which is the majority of all current Aes Sedai. I would estimate I have found about 190 members. That caused several more gasps, which she ignored. Based on the number of sisters I have not been able to interrogate, I would estimate the total number of Black Sisters is above 200, but not by much. 200, Xuan breathed. Out of merely 950 Aes Sedai total. That is a ludicrous number, Elida said. Go. Power begets power, Rand said, glancing at Sheriam. Aes Sedai are powerful simply because of the ring they wear, and the mindset that Aes Sedai are taught in the Tower encourages them to exert that power and seek to multiply it. For the more ruthless ones, joining the Black Aja is simply another method to do so. In addition, the Shadow would no doubt prioritize the recruitment of an Aes Sedai over the recruitment of, say, an innkeeper or a farmer. And to top it off, people who seek power are both more likely to join the Shadow and more likely to decide to have themselves tested for the ability to channel. After a few seconds of silence, Verin continued. All Black Sisters that I have found are catalogued by Adjar in this notebook. Of note are Talene, Sador, and Valina, who are sitters of the Black Aja. There is a fourth, Sheriam said. I do not know their identities, but the Black Aja Supreme Council can rely on 4 sitters for important votes. For 4? Xuan exclaimed. Oh! How much influence have they had? A lot, and for a very long time, Rand said. How else did you think they got away with murdering Amelin's seats? What did you just say? Elida demanded. Tamra Ospenia died only a few months after she had heard the prophecy heralding the rebirth of the Dragon Reborn, Xuan said. As did every single Aes Sedai she sent out to look for him. And I had my suspicions about Sierin Vayu's death, too. Let's work out a method to capture as many Black Sisters as possible, first, Rand said. It took them about half an hour to work out a plan everyone was content with, after which Xuan sent off a novice to request the Blue Aja sitters to call for a meeting of the Hall. Even such a simple action was a political decision, of course. Part of it was simply that Verin was confident about the Blue Aja sitters not being black, but the larger part of it was that Xuan had to keep the Blue Aja happy after working together with Elida quite a lot recently, and even using the Red Aja to call a meeting just a few days earlier. And here we go, Xuan said, composing herself. This was not what I was envisioning for the day I met you, Lord Althor. She gave him a stern look. Nor was I envisioning everything that happened after I met Moraine on the day I met her, Rand parried with hidden amusement. Let's call it even. They made their way downstairs as a group, not resorting to traveling this time. Rand might draw some attention, but with a meeting, sealed to the hall occurring, people would assume the two were related, and that more information would be revealed soon. You were seeking the Dragon Reborn, were you not? Elida asked Moiraine. I was, Moiraine said. The entire 20 years? Moiraine nodded. Within months after we were raised to the shore. And even before that we were involved, although we only knew what we were working on because we were present at the time of Hitara's prophecy. Elida remained silent, overthinking the information. I didn't know that, Lean spoke up. I'm sure you can understand the need for secrecy, Xuan said. In particular, considering even Sheriam turned out to not be trustworthy. She glowered at the freshly demoted former mistress of novices, who was to be officially stripped of her position later today. Sheriam didn't respond, understanding full well that nothing she could say would improve her position. They arrived at the entrance to the hall after several minutes, with some idle conversation, and Lean walked in first, announcing, She comes! She comes! The flame of Tar Valon, the Amelin seat. Xuan followed immediately after, but the rest of their group remained outside for now. Channeling said it improved Rand's senses enough that he was able to listen in on the conversation going on inside. "I am intrigued by your request, Mother," someone said from Egwene's thread. Rand recognized the voice as belonging to the blue sitter, Lelaine. "Before you requested that we call this meeting, I did not even know there was a man meeting with you. So perhaps you could answer the question we formally called it for. Who is the man you are meeting with?" "I would prefer to wait until all sitters are present, so that I need not repeat myself," Xuan responded. Two sisters bustled past Rand, shooting him surprised glances just then, making their way inside. Based on what Rand heard, both were sitters. "We are just waiting on Faisal, Janya, and Bevara, then," an unknown voice said. 3 minutes later, the last of the three had entered, and all attention was audibly back to Xuan. "I would like to request that this meeting is sealed to the hall," she said, "and for my guest and the Aes Sedai accompanying him to be invited in so they may be present for the meeting." "Only so long as it concerns them," another voice unknown to Rand spoke up. "Should we find ourselves discussing another matter, sealed to the hall, they must depart." "Of course," Xuan agreed. "What is brought before the hall of the tower is for the hall alone to consider," someone spoke up. Rand recognized the voice from Matt's thread, Teslin. "Whosoever intrudes unbidden, woman or man, initiate or outsider, whether they come in peace or in anger, I will bind according to the law, to face the law. Know that what I speak is true. It will and shall be done." A voice unknown to Rand spoke next. "There are those within earshot who are not of the hall. What is spoken in the hall of the tower is for the hall alone to hear until and unless the hall decides otherwise. I will make us private. I will seal our words to our ears only." Sound cut out as she wove a weave against eavesdropping, but shortly after, Teslin appeared and invited them in, Rand, Moraine, Sheriam, Elida, and Vereen. Rand walked in front, the other four following right behind him, something that caused a few raised eyebrows among the sitters, and he made his way first to the middle of the open space in the center of the hall, in front of Xuan, and then further, standing on her side. It might not quite be decorum, but it wasn't a blatant breach either, considering Xuan was introducing him to the sitters, as opposed to Rand being questioned, in which case he should have remained in the middle, with his back to most sitters. "Mother," Lelaine said, "now that this man is with us, will you answer the question of who he is?" "I will," Xuan said with the calmness of someone who was about to speak the words she had worked her entire life towards, and had to make sure she delivered them right. "This man is Randall Thor, the true Dragon Reborn." Rand pulled Calendor from the sheath and placed it in front of him, the point resting on the ground. Several sitters outright gasped. All showed a physical reaction of some form or another, and at least one of them embraced Sadar, despite the rules against this in the tower. "He is also responsible for cleansing Saidin," Xuan continued, "although I wish to note." She trailed off, recognizing that her phrasing would have allowed her to bypass the first oath. "No, I am noting that I was unaware of this plan until after it was executed, and I did not meet with him or contact him before today." The goosebumps on Rand's skin disappeared again, and based on several glares sent the way of one of the Green sisters, she was the one who had embraced Sadar. Rand didn't know what her name was. "Go," a slender brown queried. "Oh, how did you cleanse Sadin?" "Perhaps that is a topic best saved for a later date," Rand deflected. "While part of the Amerlin seats and my own intention for today is to introduce me to the White Tower, we do have a pressing matter that we need to address." "And what would that be?" one of the Red Sitters asked. Despite what Rand would expect from Reds, this woman was looking at him with more interest than apprehension. "The influence of the shadow in the White Tower," Rand said. Several people sent suspicious looks his way, although he couldn't discern by reaction which ones were black. "As I have learned today, although not from the Lord Dragon himself, the Black Aja is not only real, but its influence is far beyond what I feared," Xuan said. "Surely you have proof to back this up?" a Grey Sister said, suspicion evident in her voice. "I do. Xuan said, gesturing to Verin. Verin has spent several decades as a mole among the Black Ajar, uncovering their secrets and members. She has provided an extensive list of Black Ajar members, and we have used the Oath Rod to confirm her truthfulness. And who does this list contain? The same Red from before asked. A great many names, including ones of sisters I believed to be friends, Xuan said, as well as more than one sitter. Rand couldn't see Cedar. However, he did not need to see Cedar to read the body language of a channeler about to lash out in a desperate attempt to escape capture. A white and yellow sitter jumped up almost in tandem, but he immediately slammed shields onto both of them, easily cutting through their connection to the true source with his superior power and holding them in place with threads of air. Many other sitters had been attempting the same when the two jumped up, and most looked around in confusion for a second or two before realizing what had happened and turning to Rand. Every sitter will be asked to rescind and re-swear the 3 oaths, Rand said, in order to prove their loyalty to everyone present here. I will lead this, so that you know I am not deceiving you myself, Xuan added. Verin provided her the Oath Rod, and Xuan went through the full process. I am not a dark friend, she spoke after finishing her oaths. Nor have I ever been a dark friend. Everything I spoke to you before now, I said while under the power of the oaths. I swore when I was first raised to the shawl. She looked around the shocked hall. Who will go next? Silence reigned for several seconds. This is preposterous, a green sitter blurted out. She was tall and statuesque, with golden hair. In what way, Talene? Lelaine queried, allowing Rand to identify the green as another member of the Black Ajar, leaving only the one whose identity they were missing. While this is certainly very unusual, I doubt Sador and Valina suddenly sought to leave merely because they had forgotten something from their quarters. Meanwhile, a red sister, the one who had seemed interested in Rand more than anything, gestured for Elida to walk over and exchanged a few whispered words. Both by Rand's gut and by the looks from several other sitters, this wasn't quite according to decorum. However, the red was the one who spoke up next. I will go first. Mother? Xuan nodded and walked over to her to hand over the Oath Rod. Meanwhile, Moraine stood on the tips of her toes to make her best attempt to whisper into Rand's ear. Kuvara. Rand nodded in thanks, having heard the name a few times before. Pevara repeated Xuan's example of unswearing and re-swearing the oaths. I am not a dark friend, she concluded, and I do not see a good reason why any of us would refuse this simple action to prove our loyalty, when 2 sisters among us felt the need to flee at even the suggestion that they might have to do so. Yes, it hurts to remove the oaths, but it is nothing compared to the punishment a novice would receive for minor misbehavior, which I am sure we have all experienced at one point or another. She gave Talene a meaningful look in particular. The green looked increasingly agitated and flustered, seemingly losing control over the mental trick that allowed Aes Sedai, but also Rand, to remain composed and ignore their environment to a degree. I must admit that your reluctance is not doing you any favors, Talene, a white Aes Sedai said. From Egwene's thread, Rand recognized her as Sayin. What if I go next and you follow after? Talene didn't respond, and after a few seconds, Sene went to collect the Oath Rod from Pevara. I hope this is just you being stubborn, Talene, she spoke quietly as she did so. Then she re-swore her oaths. I am not a dark friend. She stood up from her seat again and walked over to Talene, presenting the Oath Rod. Your turn. Rand readied himself further, in case Talene would try anything, but she didn't. With visible hesitation, Talene spoke. I rescind my oaths. She cringed visibly at the pain, but continued. I vow that I will speak no word that is not true. I vow that I will make no weapon with which one man may kill another. I vow that I will never use the one power as a weapon except against dark friends or shadow spawn, or in the last extreme defense of my life, the life of my warder, or another Aes Sedai. Then she changed track from the ones who preceded her. I seek to walk in the light. None of the Aes Sedai present needed more than a moment to recognize the hidden admission in her words. It seems rather late for that, Teslin said acerbically. Talene, Xuan spoke. Speak clearly. Were you a member of the Black Ajah? Yes, Talina said. As Rand did not feel goosebumps on his skin, still, he did not move to shield her. Then there is no just punishment other than execution, one of the Grey Aes Sedai said. Rand recognized her as Yukiri, again thanks to Egwene's thread. Your dragon. Sheriam spoke, as if to remind Rand of her. Talene, Rand said, coming to a decision. I expect you to answer my questions to the fullest, without omissions or attempts to mislead me. Yes, Lord Dragon. Why did you join the Black Ajah? I sought to achieve a position of power, she responded. Why did you choose to do so by joining the Black Ajah? I was approached by them when they became aware of my goals, Talini said. I did not seek them out, and once they contacted me, I did not have the option to refuse if I wanted to keep my life. Would you have refused had you been able to? I cannot say for sure. Is that an attempt to avoid answering clearly, or your genuine thoughts on the matter? They are my genuine thoughts, Lord Dragon. I would have considered the offer had it been one, but I cannot say without more thought whether or not I would have accepted. Lord Dragon, Lelaine interrupted, is there a purpose to this interrogation? There is, Rand responded. I will elaborate in a moment. Taleni, have you ever harmed someone in any way for your own enjoyment, or simply because it made things easier for you? I have not, Lord Dragon. I sought to live, as if I were not a member of the Black Ajah in every way other than to gain political power. What if you were ordered to perform illegal acts by the Black Ajah? I have performed tasks for the Black Ajah at times, but never violent ones. As I understand it, such tasks would usually be given to those members who either did not mind or outright enjoyed them. Do you hold any loyalty to the Dark One? I followed orders purely because it would improve my position and allow me to further my own goals. Did you attempt to deceive me at any point during this conversation? No, Lord Dragon. Then I wish to make a proposal to the Hall, Rand said, now addressing everyone. I am only just starting to build a base of power in Tyr, and I will need to properly establish myself in the months and years to come ahead of Talmon Gaidon. One aspect of this is that I need to have channelers at my side. Of course, I am seeking to cooperate with the White Tower, and I have full faith in our ability to do so. However, Aes Sedai would be allies, not underlings, no matter how highly regarded. My proposal is this. Instead of executing her, the White Tower will strip Talene of her position as Aes Sedai and exile her from Tar Valon. She will then swear loyal to me on the Oath Rod and join me in Tyr. Why would you need channelers beyond what the White Tower can provide? The Red Sitter, that Rand didn't have a name for, asked. The White Tower is not nearly as aware of channelers around the world as it likes to believe, Rand said bluntly. Even if there is full cooperation between me and the White Tower, there will be times in the coming years where channelers will be fighting channelers, and not all of those fights will be against Dark Friends. I wish to be prepared for this. In addition, with Sedin cleansed, I wish to start seeking male channelers to train, and it will be beneficial to have people who have experience as members of an organization of channelers. Even if that is true, I am certain we could find more trustworthy sisters to aid you. The last white, her name unknown to Rand, said. We also, to put it bluntly, need every sword, bow, and indeed channeler we can get, Rand said. If the loyalty of a former Dark Friend can be guaranteed, and indeed, with the Oath Rod it can be, that should be enough that we prioritize it above executing them. I will also add that there will be an additional punishment involved for their prior acts. And what would this be? A pretty, Grey Sister asked, the same one who had requested proof for Rand's claim that the Shadow had infiltrated the White Tower. Rand considered the question. He did not want to reveal the Oath Rod's side effect of shortening the lifespan of those who swore on it yet, as that would likely interfere with today's efforts. But the question was a sensible one that needed an answer. They will pay in years of their future life, he eventually said. They will simply grow older more quickly than they otherwise would, although they still live well beyond the lifespan of someone who cannot channel. I cannot reveal the method for now, as we simply do not have the time today, but I can promise that you will know before midsummer. How does this interact with the current age of the person? The Grey asked, seeming almost more like a Brown to Rand in that moment. It does not, Rand said. It only affects the years of their life they still have left to live. He nodded. I would like to note that I object to having to unswear and reswear my oaths. Everyone stilled. Everyone stilled. Rand, after a moment, went to collect the oath rod from Teleni and gave it to the still unnamed Grey and pointed Kalendor at her throat. I am not giving you a choice. The Grey-sitter went ahead and unswore, then reswore her oaths. I do not know which way the Hall will decide, but I prefer a chance over no chance, she stated simply. I will interrogate you before deciding whether or not you received the same offer in the first place. Of course. This process is making me uncomfortable, a Yellow said. Let's swear our oaths, so we can be certain there is no one else first. If nothing else, I wish to clear my own name. I agree, Rand said. Let's complete this first. I will say that based on our information, there should be no other Black Sitters, but I do not intend to take that for granted until we have it confirmed.